Good morning, welcome in. Hello Vante, hello Sarah, welcome in, good to see you. I'm getting my tablet set up, so don't mind me. Babel, good morning, how are you? If I sound out of it, by the way, it's because I went to bed at about 3 in the morning, so that's why. Also, pour one out for my hair clip that I've been using recently. My hair is very thick, so it's very heavy, and I go through clips like mad, but clips are the only thing that don't hurt my head. So if I use a hair tie, it starts to really hurt to the point that I can get a headache. So I usually use a clip, but I go through clips pretty fast because the plastic eventually breaks. And this clip I've had for a few months, and it has finally lost its first tooth, its first little prong here. So rip to this little guy. He's probably not going to last much longer. He has served me well. I've heard this melody somewhere. I have used this playlist before for streaming. This is a AI-free like fantasy ambiance channel. So I use their audio quite a lot, and I this is the particular playlist that I've used a fair bit while writing and working on the Secret Project. So I'm quite partial to it. It's a nice background song or playlist rather. James, good morning. Welcome in. How are you today? Was a stressful week and I'm starting to hate people. Oh no, I know how that feels. Work was super stressful this past week for me as well. I'm still dealing with the getting a promotion but also not getting the promotion because they haven't made it official. So I'm getting all the extra work and the extra responsibility, but I don't have the title yet or the pay. Excuse me. So that was my week. It's been fun. I have a 3-day weekend this weekend though, so that's nice. So I get Monday off. So hopefully I can be productive. I use big metal clips. Yeah, I probably need to get something that's more heavy duty. Just because my hair is so heavy, but we'll see. I have my iced coffee here. I will mute though, so you don't get the coffee ASMR. And then I will figure out which cardinal I want to work on first here, because I've done some concept art and designs for the cardinals before, and I've drawn them a handful of times. But what I would like is for one of the videos that I have planned for YouTube is a lore video that talks about the cardinals and kind of what they are. Without, I have to toe this line of not making it too spoilery. So we'll see if I can manage that because I'm gonna be, now that the first book is out, I'm not super worried about like some of the basic spoilers for lack of a better word. You know, like some of like the very basic world building. Now that the book is out and people have had a chance to read it and have had a chance to get that lore, I'm like, okay, now I can start getting into more of the world building details, and I won't feel like I'm spoiling the first book. So, be working on. I'll probably work on the guy, girl, could be either one. Cardinals can be either. There's no gender distinction. I'll probably work on the one on the right first. I'm gonna have a little bit more of my coffee though, because I'm fighting for my life. Because I stayed up way too late. I also was a good social media person, and I actually put the link up on my Instagram. I didn't forget this time, so that's great. This cardinal here in the middle is looking a little bit short. We love a short king. There's no height requirement to being a cardinal, but I'd kind of like them all to be the same size. There, that'll do. Let's see. So the basic concept here is depending on if you've seen previous art of the Cardinals or you've read the book, then you'll know that. Let's see here. I'm just gonna sketch this in. You know that obviously the Cardinals wear red. It's part of the whole bit. But the Cardinals also have masks. So this is just for illustration purposes, but so they also have masks that cover their faces that I need to design a little bit more. In general, the only things I have decided for the mask is that it's it's like a neutral, peaceful expression, right? So like let's say that like this is the mask itself. Usually it has like eyes that are closed. Obviously like a little nose, and then it just has like a neutral or like a peaceful mouth. Like it's not like it's like a screaming face or it's an angry face or anything. It's generally just a sleeping, peaceful face. And let's see here. There's going to be designs and stuff on it. Like there's usually like the church's cross emblem and stuff is on the forehead, and there's like embellishment and everything and so on. But the actual like eye holes for the mask are kind of like this. So it's sculpted to look like the eyes are closed, and then like this portion here is open, and that's what they look through. Is the general idea. But if you're familiar with the hunters, and I actually ran into this a little bit with the Hellfire animatic, which, because there were vampires, I kind of assumed that people would be like, oh, okay, so there's like an element of fantasy and stuff going on here. People didn't assume that, which I kind of understand now looking back on it, but when in the Hellfire animatic, Cyril is seen using like fire magic, and he summons his hunter's weapon, which is a chain whip. That's his weapon that he summons. And people were like, well, where did that come from? Like, this is magic. Sorry, I can't explain that when it's an animatic. You have to kind of read the book to figure that out. But if you're familiar with the fact that the hunters summon weapons, then the cardinals are neither hunters nor clerics. So you've got the two factions. They're not factions because they're not like opposed to one another, but you've got like the two sides of the church, right? So you have the clerics who cannot summon weapons, and then you have the hunters who can summon weapons. And the kind of trade-off there is that clerics have higher healing power, but hunters can use weapons that specifically only work against vampires. The cardinals can also summon objects, but they are not weapons. So they summon religious things. I don't know how better to say that. I slept like 2 hours. I was up until 3. You have to be nice to me. Give me some slack this morning. But for example, these are just some of the, I mean, you can't really tell what this one is right now, but these are basically the different items that they can summon. Like obviously we've got a staff. Okay, wow, you can't see that. Hold on. Okay, we have a staff. We have a censer or thurible. I forget what it's called. Anyways, and then you can't really tell here, but like this one is gonna have like a some orb, like magic orb stuff. So cardinals can summon objects that are not weapons, but they'll still burn a vampire if a vampire decides, "Ooh, shiny, I want to touch it." It'd be a terrible idea. It would still burn a vampire because it's a holy item, but it's not a weapon. It's not to be used in that way. So the cardinals are neither clerics nor hunters. They have basically some abilities of both, kind of, but basically, and this is true with any magic in this world, but especially within the church, any kind of power that you get comes with some trade-off in terms of like a limitation or a sacrifice that you have to make. So obviously, in order to be a cleric or a hunter, you have to take your vows and you have to sign on with the church. And so you're losing a bit of, you're losing your freedom. You're giving your life to this cause and you're giving your life to this church and you're following all their rules. So there's an exchange that happens there where you give up something and you're getting this power in exchange. Normal stuff. With the Cardinals, they have some of the strongest magic that's available in the church, so they are extremely limited as a result of that. So they are very powerful, but they're also extremely controlled. Like pretty much the highest level of control that you could get within the church, which doesn't equal a high rank in the church. They are of a high rank. They are considered to be high-ranking people, but it doesn't necessarily mean authority figures in the church. It just means that they're respected and they've worked their way up to a rank that is very difficult to reach. But they're not, contrary to some theories that I've seen, they are not in charge of Cyril. Like they are not in charge of the archbishop. He is technically their boss. So even though Cyril is not as controlled and not as powerful as a cardinal because he's only an archbishop, he is still technically their boss. So they do still have to do what he says. Unless unless Cyril is telling them to do something that directly contradicts what the church's lore, what the church rules and laws would have them do. Because a cardinal's role is they have several roles in general, but they're basically history keepers and record keepers, and it is their job to consult and be consulted by the archbishop, and they will tell the archbishop and by extension the chapter house, which is like the council of like the bishops and so on. They will provide resources and scripture and so on to help people make decisions that are in alignment with what the church believes and what is allowed. So when there's a really difficult decisions, the cardinals will be there to weigh in on it and give references as to why something is or is not acceptable. So Cyril, not frequently, because Cyril's pretty studied in the lore of the church, but relatively often he'll be like, "Hey, what the hell do I do with this? I don't know what to do." And they'll dig up some scripture or something for him and try to, give him an idea of what he should do. Bronte wouldn't give in to such a foolish trap. I don't know, it's pretty shiny. Do demons exist in this world like the seven deadly sins? No, at least not in the current iteration that I have of this story. Obviously, as you're telling a story, especially one that's this big, as you go through development, it's going to go through several changes. So I'm not saying that I wouldn't add those things in, but I don't currently include them, and I don't really have any intention to add them in. Because the church is already very much based off of like our understanding of like the Catholic slash Christian slash Orthodox church. It's got elements of all of those, but that's really only supposed to be a starting point, and then it kind of changes from there. So I don't want to have too many one-for-one similarities to this church and the Catholic Church and Catholic beliefs and so on. Vampires, for example, do not function in the way that vampires, according to like the historical Catholic Church and Christian Church, believed. Does that make sense? I'm just saying words at this point. I'm just putting words together. But as a fun little lore tidbit, because I've been talking about how they summon these, I'm not going to call them relics because they're not relics, but like religious paraphernalia. I don't really know what you call them. As they summon these religious items, again, they summon these the same way that a hunter would summon their weapon, but obviously it's not a weapon. But the other thing that they're pretty much always summoning is actually their mask. Their mask is actually a summoned item, just like a hunter summons their weapon. They just never unsummon it. They always have it out, which, as you can imagine, takes quite a lot of power to do so. So they're constantly summoning their mask, which means that they're constantly putting out a certain level of magic, which Domingo, I'm sure would be like, "Hey, what the hell?" Like, what? Wait, what's going on? You got monsters. Yeah, I don't think that they're. I haven't in the lore of this world and this particular religion. I didn't include like the concept, quote unquote, of demons because that implies that there is like a heaven and a hell, and that there are fallen angels and demons and like a Satan figure, which isn't really the case in this world. There's some parts of that, but not entirely. So they haven't. I don't think I have any of the characters refer to. I don't think I do. I don't know. I'd have to read it again. I don't think I have any of the characters in Immolation refer to the vampires as demons. That they aren't referred to as that. So, like the concept of demons as like we would probably interpret it isn't really something that's used here. But we're gonna get more into the lore of like what are vampires actually in Volume 2. Volume 2 is going to be pretty much not all about that. There's more that goes on in Volume 2, but Volume 2 largely focuses on vampires and how they come to be and like the different kinds of vampires, because obviously you technically meet different kinds of vampires in Volume 1, but it's not really spelled out for you. You have to wait to Volume 2, and then it's going to be spelled out for you. see here. And speaking of volume 2, I am still working on it, obviously. I don't write in chronological order, so that's fun. But one of the things that I am kind of considering as I work on volume 2 is, and you can let me know your thoughts here, but basically, and I was talking to Babel about this not too long ago. I'm wondering if instead of having like a long break between each book, I can have a longer break between volume 1 and volume 2 so that I can have a very short, well, not very short, but a shorter break between 2 and 3. And what I mean by that is currently I'm working on volume 2, I'm editing and writing and yada yada yada. As I'm working on volume 2, I might just continue and write volume 3. Excuse me. I might just write all the way through to volume 3 to the end of it, which is going to take longer, yes, but my thought is that it means that you guys, as the readers, have a longer gap where you have to wait between volume 1 and volume 2. But because volume 2 and volume 3 are going to both be done at basically the same time, I can basically publish 2 and 3 pretty much back to back, other than like processing and editing. So we'll see. I'm considering that it would just mean a longer break between volume 1 and volume 2, but I don't know. Maybe that's a good trade-off. I'm not sure. I'm still kind of thinking about it. How do cardinals consume food through the mask? So they can take off the mask to eat, but they can't do that in sight of anyone. So they don't eat in the refectory with everyone. They don't eat in there. They don't even eat in front of Cyril. Like Cyril, even Cyril hasn't seen their faces. He doesn't know what they look like. So they eat only in private, but then they can unsummon. They can just unsummon the mask and then they can eat. It's not a big deal. So, or they can tilt it up or like set it, because it is a physical item. Once it's summoned, it is a physical item. You can touch it. But yeah, they can't take off. It is part of the rules. It's part of their exchange of power. Is they cannot take that mask off in view of anyone. I'm not even, honestly, I don't even know if they could take it off in front of other cardinals. They might have to be entirely alone. That would honestly check out. Because usually you only have one cardinal. Churches typically will only have one, and it might not even be a cardinal that's a permanent resident of that church. They might travel from church to church, like within a certain area. But because Cyril is the archbishop, I mean, yeah, because Cyril is the archbishop of a cathedral, cathedrals do typically have one cardinal on hand at all times, and usually they will have two just in case. So you have one cardinal who is constantly there and constantly available to help, and the other cardinal can travel as needed to other churches in like the surrounding area. And also just because, again, our beloved lady is relatively unique in the fact that she's dealing with this vampire shenanigans. But there's a lot of work to be done, a lot for one cardinal to do, so they have two, so that they can share that workload. But also for travel. How long are we talking about approximately? I'm not really sure. My editor does tend to work very quickly, so I don't think the editing from the professional standpoint is going to take super long. But to kind of give you an idea, right now, Volume 2 is, because I haven't been prioritizing Volume 2, I've been working more on the secret project. Volume 2 is about at, I'm trying to think of like a percentage rather than word count, because like I said, I don't write in chronological order. So I have a lot of words that are not necessarily all going to be included, or the same version is going to be there. So I'm not going by word count. I'm going by like the story that I have plotted out percentage. So I would say percentage-wise, Volume 2 is probably at about the 65% mark, give or take. and it's taken me, it'll be 1 year since volume one in November. Granted, and again, this is with me working on another project at the same time in terms of writing, but I also just got a promotion and I'm also trying to do animatics and so on, so I suspect that I'll be a little bit slow. My goal was to make the break between the books no longer than 2 years. I didn't want people to have to wait longer than that. That's already a really long time to wait. But I'm thinking if I just continue writing kind of at the pace that I am, especially if I can wrap up the secret project, which is already too long. The secret project was supposed to be like 90,000 words max, and it's already at like 75,000, and it's only about halfway done. So, congratulations, you're an overwriter. But anyways, I'm thinking if I work all the way through and write all the way to volume three, it would probably end up being like about a 3 year wait rather than the two that I'm thinking of or was hoping for. But I don't know. It's really hard to say just because life has been so hectic lately. Cardinals are awesome bodyguards. It's true. They do their best. They don't fight, so they technically can't hurt you? Question mark. But they can scare you. And they're a little bit mischievous in that way. They kind of like doing that. They just think it's funny. A year in November or October? I thought I published it in November. Hold on. Now I have to go look. Hello, Amazon. Please show me my own book. Nope, yep, nope, it was October. I remember. Yeah, so never mind. It was October. It'll be a year in October, which is coming right up, but that's all right. Hello, Boo. Welcome in. How are you today? What makes a vampire good or bad? That depends on who you ask. You might be of the same opinion as Cyril, and you might think that all vampires are bad and are damned by design, which is his words, and there might be zero room for negotiation there. Or you might be more like Bronte, who doesn't think of herself as bad or evil inherently, or she's trying really hard not to think that. So it depends on who you ask. People have very different opinions. Did Bronte ever regret being a nun? Bronte can't regret being a nun because she didn't have a choice in the matter. She did not have a choice. It was the only option. And she's not technically a nun. She's a novice, so she hasn't actually taken her vows and become a nun. But she didn't have a choice in becoming a novice. It was the only place she could be. Well, the only good place she could be. In the hospital right now for something. Oh dear. Well, I'm wishing you a speedy recovery. Hang in there. Do your best. How are you doing? I am hanging in there. Very stressful week at work, but it is what it is. We got through it. I have a 3 day weekend, which is nice. I'm hoping to get a lot of writing done this weekend. I went to the charity shop yesterday hoping to find like not it doesn't I didn't have to find good art, but I was hoping to at least find, some decent frames that I could then get prints and stuff to put in. But nope, the charity shop just had absolutely nothing. It was a total waste to go all the way over there. So, very disappointed, but it is what it is. I did bake some banana bread, which is fantastic, delicious. I am not sure if I like the bake time and the temperature on this recipe. I will have to play around with it a little bit more, but overall, good recipe. I give it a solid 8 out of 10. Almost 2 years of waiting, I know. I assume it'd be more convenient for you to write 2 books. It would be a little bit more convenient, and I think my thought is that people would prefer, and in theory, to have a longer wait between Volume 1 and Volume 2 so that they can read Volume 2 and Volume 3 relatively quick, like basically back to back. I'm hoping to more or less publish those back to back because Volume 1 was all about like the world building and the setup and kind of introducing you. So that one was going to be slower and was going to be, the way that it is. And Volume 2 and Volume 3 are going to really ramp up in terms of everything going badly. So I can imagine that people wouldn't want as long of a break because no, Volume 2 does not end on a cliffhanger, don't worry. There's not a cliffhanger, but I can understand people being like, ugh. So I don't know. That's kind of my thought process. We'll see. I just want to wrap up the secret project at the moment. I'm trying to get some more beta readers on it, but that's not going well. um, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Give my baby a happy ending. Mm, hmm. Hmm. Cyril thinks all vampires are extremely damned except for one. It's true. And listen, in Cyril's defense, she's only half of a vampire. That's his argument, and he's sticking to it. I really should not be trying to draw the cardinals from memory, but it is what it is. I'm just hanging out. But yes, I'm leaning towards doing the same thing with YouTube that I'm leaning towards with the novels in the sense of I want to go through and like do as much as I can so that then I can release it with like within like a relatively quick time because my poor my poor YouTube really is hurting for like normal videos. I've been really good with keeping to my stream schedule, which I'm very happy with, but yeah, the rest of the videos are really struggling. So I'm hoping to get the prologue for Immolation professionally narrated by a voice actor, and then that can be up as a video for people to listen to. I'm trying to remember how the hell I did this design. I don't think I did that. I think I just did a flat. Yeah, that seems right. Rain again, welcome in. How are you today? These sketches look cool so far. Thank you so much. I think I want to change that. I want at least one of these. I'm not sure which one it's going to be, but I want at least one of them to be like the travel attire that I was gonna call them clerics. They're not clerics. The cardinals. I want at least one of these to be the travel attire that the cardinals wear. I'll probably make it this one since they've already got a staff and you could use a staff to walk, I guess. But the cardinals have even though the masks themselves are summoned, the other kind of adornment that they wear on a regular basis is not. So they've got this kind of like chain that they wear kind of over their shoulders, and it's got like a crest. So this is not summoned, but their mask is. Technically, it's more convenient to have two books to read, practically. However, yeah, there's always a trade-off there, and I'm trying the same way that I'm trying with the YouTube videos is trying to get things made so that I can release them whether I have the time to work on them at that moment or not. Like I want to have like a bunch of stuff queued up that I can then release when life gets super busy and I can't work on creative stuff as much. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm doing well. I've been applying to jobs like crazy this weekend. Oh, good luck. What kind of jobs are you applying for? By the voice actor you sent, or are you still considering other candidates? I really liked the voice actor that I sent you. I think he does a lot of really fun voices. The specific voice that I sent you, that kind of like 10-second clip, I think that voice would work well for Immolation. Um, but I'm still open to finding another voice actor. Um, the prologue would not be ridiculously expensive to have commissioned. It would be reasonable. Um, Obviously, I cannot afford an audiobook as much as I would like to do that. But yeah, I think the what's the word? Prologue. I didn't sleep. I got to bed at 3 in the morning. Be nice to me. I think the prologue would be like a good little like bite-sized piece for people to listen to, especially because it's not like a scene from the actual story. It's just like a very short little bit of narration. So it's not like people are gonna listen to like one chapter and then they don't get to listen to anymore because I don't think that would be really fair. All right. Main thing is the Cardinals are very skinny because they don't actually eat very much. Maybe hungry boys and girls. Or, well, hungry they thems. Because Cardinals can be any gender, so whatever gender you identify with when you're in the church, it doesn't matter. You can still like apply. You don't really apply to become a cardinal. You get like chosen and like offered. Um, and you don't have a say in that. Either you're offered the opportunity to become a cardinal or you don't. So, but if you accept that role and if you say yes, okay, I'm willing to become a cardinal, which is like being selected for the archbishop. Cyril doesn't get a choice in whether he becomes the archbishop. He has to become the archbishop no matter what. That is unique to our beloved lady because she has a relic that chooses her archbishop. Normally in other churches, the archbishop is selected by popular vote. So and they're given a chance to once they win the popular vote, they're asked, "Do you want to be archbishop? Can you handle this responsibility?" And the person who was voted for has a chance to say yes or no. Cyril didn't get that. He got the job whether he liked it or not. But with cardinals, if they're selected, the position is offered, and then they can choose yes or no, they do or do not want to be a cardinal. If they become a cardinal, one of the things that they give up, because again, when you're accepting more power from the church, you have to give up more and more things. One of the things that they give up, well, some of the things that they give up is their gender. So they don't go by like he or she, they have to go by they, them. So they become androgynous, and you have to give that up. They also give up their names. So they don't actually have names anymore once they become a cardinal. They are just referred to as cardinal. That's it. So they don't have names and they don't have genders. Once they become cardinals, they lose all of that. So a little bit of crispy lore there. Hashtag Bronte deserves love. It's true. She does. She is the best girl. I applied to a few places, but the one I'm most looking forward to is a nail technician. Oh, that's really cool. Well, I hope you get it. I hope you do well in the field, and I hope it is a fun position for you. I was talking to a friend of mine last night, and we were talking about it in the context of one of our hobbies, but we were talking about like trimming wigs and things like that. And she is more skilled in these sort of things in terms of she works with her nails and works with wigs and can trim and style wigs and do all this sort of stuff. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, I just get the clippers out and I shave shave the parts off of my head that I don't like. I'm like, I don't know how any of this works. So you have my unending respect, because it's like witchcraft to me. I have no idea how y'all do it. Teasing the first chapter wouldn't be fair. However, that would be great advertisement. I'm telling you. Maybe that could be fun. Just have the first chapter, because I don't have an audiobook. So there's something you have to consider when you're self-publishing. The route that I went with self-publishing Immolation, I'm generally okay with like the print versions. But for example, if you have an audiobook like through Amazon, etc., you have to be really careful about how much you release, because you could be breaching your contract. That said, I don't have an audiobook and I can't afford to make one, so I could put the first chapter on YouTube. Prologue and first chapter, or whatever I decide to do. We'll see, maybe. That's probably something I could afford. The voice actors, you typically pay them by hour, like recorded hour of footage, so I don't think the first chapter is that long of a read. And I know the prologue is short. No names is sad. It's true. They lose pretty much their entire identity. That's why they cover their face. So they no longer have their own unique appearance. They're covered like literally head to toe with clothing and a mask, so you can't even like tell anything about them. They severely limit their like food intake, not like starving themselves or anything, but they don't eat like a normal meal. They have like a very limited diet that they have to stick to. They lose their name, they lose their pronouns, they really lose everything in exchange for the incredible amount of power that they get from the church. And just like being archbishop, this is a life commitment. Once you are a cardinal, you cannot quit being a cardinal. You are a cardinal until you die. So it's tough. It's a tough job. They have to be extremely dedicated to the church and extremely convicted in their faith and their beliefs. That's relatable though. It's all witchcraft to me. Magic. Right, okay, so this one I'm thinking of being the travel attire. So in this case, they still have the normal, it's kind of a cassock, but not really. So they still have That, and it's still got the buttons. So there's no way out. Correct. There's no way out. There's no way out for Cyril either because he was chosen by a relic, so it's a little bit different. A normal archbishop would be able to retire if they say, "Nope, I'm too old for this. I'm tired. I want to go to bed." They could just quit. Cyril does not get to quit, and the cardinals do not get to quit. They are cardinals until they keel over and die. And pretty much just like an archbishop, the only way that you become a cardinal, there's like a set limit on the number of cardinals that can exist at a given time. It's very, very regulated. So there's a set amount. Like I said, the cathedral has two because there's an incredible amount of work that needs to be done. So there always needs to be at least two, but there cannot be more than two. That's a hard limit, and that's a very special circumstance because of how intense the workload is. So basically, one of the two cardinals at Our Beloved Lady would need to die in order for a position to open up where, yes, they need another cardinal, and then someone out there is offered the opportunity. Do you want to become the cardinal? Yes or no? And then they would choose. And if there isn't someone in the cathedral that wants to fulfill that role, then they would have to pick someone else and like ship them out, drive them all the way out there to get them to the cathedral so they could be made into a cardinal at that church and become the next cardinal. So it's just like with the archbishop, you have to wait for somebody to, well, an archbishop could retire, but usually they just die. Usually they just die. But yeah, that's the only time. So it's very rare to have like a cardinal cycle through because these people keep it for life. And they usually are selected not young because you need to have like a certain amount of life experience to become a cardinal, but young enough, like probably people in like their 30s or so have become cardinals and then live out the rest of their lives as cardinals. Sorry, I was kidnapped for some peak games. Did you have fun? Did you win? I don't know how that game works. um, I'm not a big fan of how this looks so far. I'm gonna redo it. Because the big thing is with the travel attire, they have this cloak. So instead of the like capelet, there's actually like a cloak that they wear. I think I want to have it be. Peak is a co-op game where you all have to climb up the peak of mountains. Did you reach the top, son? If you had to give Cyril a deadly sin, which one would it be? We all know that this man is. It would be lust. This man needs to calm down. That's so sad. I know it is sad. Actually, Benjamin, he doesn't explicitly say it in Volume 1, but he does make mention of saying that maybe someday he'll be a cardinal because Benjamin actually does want to become a cardinal. That's kind of one of his goals in the church is he wants to become a cardinal, he wants to become a record keeper, he wants to become an archivist. So that is something that he wants to do, but he has to wait until one of the cardinals passes away, and then he can be considered. And he doesn't know if he's going to be considered because he doesn't have any say over that. He just has to hope that he's on the secret list. It would be a mix of pride and lust. Yeah, that's more accurate. Definitely the pride for sure. We all died at the last mountain. Ah, rip. You hate to see it. Is it a game where you can like actually die? I thought you would just like fall back down, kind of like those rage games, like Jump King and whatever that other one was. I would have assumed that you'd just fall all the way down. Maybe greed too. Pirate, absolutely greed. But priest, probably more pride. I wanted to say pride would be up there for sure, for sure. He thinks he's the best thing since sliced bread, and someone needs to calm him down. Okay, and then obviously they're gonna have their chain that they wear. And then, so normally, let me go back over here. So normally, because again, the cardinals are androgynous, they have to give up their gender identity and their name and everything when they become a cardinal. So their attire reflects that. So, for example, with the little capelet, that's a part that you typically only see on the men's cassocks in the church. But and the hat too. The hat can be worn by either gender, it just depends on preference, but the hat that they wear, they also wear a veil underneath the hat, which is obviously the more feminine choice when you are selecting your attire for clerical. So they wear things that both gender wears, so you can't really say one way or the other. No, you could definitely die. Damn, I did not know that. I thought you just fell. Okay, let's go back here. So normally they do wear a veil, but with the travel attire, I wanted to change it to being like a little hood cloak thing. So it's like part of their cloak that they're wearing. And then of course they still have their hat. And their hat still has you have one bar which is all shared between wait, all shared as in share those stats are shared or all shared as in you as a team, your entire team shares one bar because that's diabolical if that's the way it works. Also, hunger? How the hell are you supposed to eat? What? Wow, that game is more intense than I thought. All stats. You can find food on your way up. I see. Cod Frollo equals Cyril. I don't know if he's an exact one-to-one comparison, but he's got a lot of similarities. I mean, I did make the Hellfire animatic, so. Oh, and I think perhaps one of the not weirdest things, but one of the I don't know, maybe it is weird. Whatever. One of the unique things about Cardinals, which if you've read the first volume, if you've read Immolation, or you've been to other streams where I've talked about this, Cyril and all of the clergy wear belt rosaries, which are both for prayer but also for casting magic. They need that rosary with them in order to cast magic. Cardinals don't need a rosary to cast magic. That's one of the really, really powerful things about them, is they don't need that in order to cast magic, which means that they effectively can't be disarmed. Like if you take a hunter's rosary away, they can't cast magic. Even Cyril. Cyril is slightly different because he has the relic, because he's the archbishop. So, and he has his cane, and his cane is he still could beat your ass with that cane. But yeah, technically, if you took away Cyril's rosary, for example, he wouldn't be able to summon his chain whip. He just wouldn't be able to. He has to have his rosary on him in order to do that, because that's a specific spell that requires using that. But for example, the immolation spell that Cyril wrote, that comes from the relic itself. So you technically can cast that without your rosary, but it's really, really hard to do. You need to have the faith of a dying man to cast immolation without your rosary. If you have your rosary, it's much easier to cast. But technically, like Cyril in his case, if he was disarmed, he could still cast immolation because he literally is the relic at this point. It's literally him at this point. So it's very easy for him to cast, versus someone else who would need the rosary to act as a conduit and a connection to the relic to then cast the spell. But be careful how you cast it, because poor Cyril gets very draining. Claude Frollo from the book or the movie? So Cyril is more based off of the Claude Frollo from the book versus the movie. Even though I used Hellfire, which is obviously from the film, he's more inspired by Claude Frollo from the book. I'm almost out of my coffee. So I'm thinking what I'll do is have this one over here be like their standard attire, and then this one will be, whoop, oh my goodness, whoop, come back. There we go. This one will obviously be travel attire, and then this one will probably be like ceremonial attire, which looks a little bit different. So I think that'll do. Why did my music stop? Oh, I thought from the Disney movie, more lore drop. Yes, more lore drops. He definitely has aspects of him because let's be real, the film is just such a masterpiece. I obviously couldn't not include some inspiration. But yeah, so I think like the biggest difference is that in the film, in the Disney film, Claude begins as the villain. You get right away that badass Disney villain vibe from him from the moment you see him. Versus in the book and kind of by extension the Broadway musical, which is also a huge piece of inspiration. Frollo starts out as more not sympathetic, not quite, but he starts off as being more of like a misguided but genuinely wanting to help kind of figure, and over time he morphs into this just diabolical, treacherous loser. But there's more of a rather than him starting off as the enemy, there's more of a betrayal kind of in the way that he acts and the way that he changes over the course of the story. So I liked that dynamic, and I also liked the dynamic of in the Disney film, for example, Frollo is the enemy, like he is the enemy of the people too. Like people don't like him. The common people don't like him. They tolerate him, but they don't like him. Versus in the book and the Broadway musical, he is able to actually exhibit a lot of control over the common people because people like him and people rally behind him and they believe what he says and he has a certain amount of social sway that Frollo in the Disney film does not. So that's also something that I wanted to include is Cyril and his ability to impact other people and make himself appear as if he is this savior, as if he is this hero, as if he is this good guy. And, you just have to accept the horrible things he does because ultimately he's doing it for the greater good, yada, yada, yada. When actually, he's just an asshole. If Bronte could choose her destiny, would she want to be a mother? No. No, thank you. No, no, she's not interested in that. If Bronte could choose anything, I think the biggest thing that she'd want to choose or she'd want to be able to do is she really, really wants to travel. She's been trapped inside the grounds of the cathedral. It's not even like Cyril who like lives there but can leave. Cyril has traveled pretty far. I mean, he's come back obviously because this is where he lives and where he works. But like he's traveled, he can leave. He has his freedom and he can go wherever he wants. It's not like he's tied to the cathedral in the sense that he can't physically leave it. He can physically leave. He comes back because that's where he lives. Bronte physically cannot leave. She's forbidden from leaving the grounds. So her biggest wish, I think, would just being able to travel. That's really what she would like. She wants to travel. She wants to try different food from different cultures. She wants to read lots of books. She wants to explore. Those are all things she can't really do. She would open a bakery. She would open a bakery. She would have such a good time. She would love it. She'd absolutely love to open like a bakery and a coffee house. 10 out of 10. Okay, let's do a quick sketch of the ceremonial attire, which is the most. You can't see me, but I'm like making the gesture of like holding up a little orb because onion layers. It's got the most layers. Okay, so let's see here. There's a lot that goes into the ceremonial attire, and I don't actually know if I've left enough room for it. Let's see here. All right, let's move you over. I'm gonna have to look up references. If you ever wanted to know why I don't stream more of the animatic work, it's that one, animatics take an extreme level of focus on my part. I would not be able to say a word it's really hard, and I have to focus quite a lot. But also, most of the time is just spent. I need a reference, and I have to go spend 15 minutes finding a reference. So same thing here. I would prefer to kind of go find a reference, but I'm just gonna do. I'm just gonna vibe. I'm just gonna hang out. Let's see here. Obviously, they still wear their hat. They pretty much always wear it. But what I'm thinking is, too big. You've clearly analyzed all the mediums there are of Hunchback of Notre Dame. I like consuming well-researched content. Man, I love the story so much, and I love all of the music alone, of course, is just a masterpiece, but really just like the performances of everyone involved and just Chef Kiss. It's all so good. It's such a big inspiration, and I love digging into these stories and finding little pieces. Let's see here. So I think the big thing that I'm thinking of here is the ceremonial attire has like this different, you're not going to be able to really see the back of it, but it kind of, what I'm thinking at least, is that it will kind of replace their chain. So like this over here, this chain that they wear is going to be replaced. It's kind of a stole, so it's a little bit like what Cyril wears. Cyril wears his stole when he's like performing in a like a religious context. That, I mean, he's always in a religious context. He's a freaking priest, but um, like if he's performing a ritual or if he is hearing a confession, etc., he always has his stole on. And the cardinals, technically, the cardinals can take confessions, but like they really don't. They really don't make a habit of doing that. It's kind of like in a last resort situation, like an all-out war has broken out and people are dying constantly, and you need more people available to hear confessions, then cardinals will like step in and start hearing confessions. But other than that, they generally don't. But they do wear the stole sometimes, especially if they are assisting Cyril in some kind of ritual um, capacity, in which case they will, of course, wear a stole. But their stole looks a little bit different from his. Cyril technically has like, what's it called? Ceremonial wear too. It's mentioned, I think, once, literally once, in volume one. Um, but instead of being black, Cyril's ceremonial attire is all white, which is symbolic of shenanigans. because originally the clergy did wear white, and it changed over the course of time to have different meanings and yada yada yada. Um, but like their original founder, she wore actual physical white garments, which is different from a spell that exists that will turn clothes white, because that's a different spell. Maybe after traveling a long time, she marries someone far away from Cyril. Maybe. She's got a long way to go. Let's see. Can't really tell what that is, but well, whatever. I'm not happy with that. That looks a little too uniform, but it'll do for now. What would Cyril choose if he could choose his own destiny? I think Cyril is so convicted of his beliefs that he thinks he is exactly where he's supposed to be. So he wouldn't change anything. He believes that he's exactly where he was meant to be. If anything, he might choose to change how he got there, but also he's so convinced that he is in exactly the position he was meant to be that he probably wouldn't change anything. He's not necessarily someone who subscribes to the idea of everything happens for a reason, but he can also acknowledge that everything that he's been through made him who he is, and he thinks he's exactly where he's supposed to be. So he wouldn't change anything. I would like to have a spell that could turn my colors any color, my clothes any color I choose. I love being colorful. Listen, we got that RGB clothes option. Let's see here. I might change that. Where's my layer? There it is. I agree with Cyril on something. A rare instance of agreeing with Cyril. originally had their head facing down, but I think I'm gonna change that. RGB clones option. I also have discovered that there is a neighborhood cat. Um, so that's been exciting. I have no idea whose cat it is. Hopefully it is someone's, and hopefully they bring that cat inside, but who knows. But yeah, there is apparently a cat because I kept getting notifications of activity outside my front door because I have a camera doorbell. But by the time I would open up the camera, whatever it was would already be gone. And my camera doorbell is right next to the lamp that's kind of like outside the front door. So I always just thought, oh, it's probably moths and like gnats kind of like being attracted to the light and flying in front of the camera. But no, turns out I opened it up last night. It was a kitty cat. There was a kitty cat sitting out there. Share this playlist with the class. I got you. I got you. Hang on. I'll put it in the Discord as well. I think actually I'm gonna change this. Yeah, I like those vibes better. Give him a full-on cape cloak vibe. I think that fits. And then I think they'll keep the veil for this. Thank you. You're welcome. And let's see here. So their little orb here that they'd be. It's gonna be kind of hard to see it in front of the stole, so I will change the color for a minute. It's kind of something like that, give or take. Just to get the general idea. Actually, I'm going to, never mind, let me change this to Misio says hi. I love Misio. Please give Misio a kiss for me. If you ever catch or see the culprit, take a picture. So I did get a screenshot. Hold on. I'll put this in the Discord. I did get a screenshot last night. Where's my screenshot? There it is. I love black cats. Same. It's funny. The other day I put because I had the windows open, I think a little cricket got into the house. So I was walking out to my room and I saw this little cricket, and he seemed to not be well. He was really struggling to kind of walk around. And I was like, oh no, poor little guy. So I got a piece of paper and I kind of scraped him up in like to a cup, and I took him outside and I just kind of put him in the bushes. And like as I'm leaning over to put him in the bushes, I hear like this little squeak, and I look over and there's a cat, a different cat from the one that I think I caught last night because it was a different color. But there was another cat over there, and I was like, "Oh, this cricket probably isn't gonna last very long out here. Sorry, sorry, little guy." So I hope you made it, but probably didn't. On a mission. So cute and tiny. Let's see here. It's the weirdest looking egg I've ever drawn, but it's fine. Just need to capture the vague vibe. My cat used to really love caterpillars, so I tried to save them from him. I hope they survived. I don't know if any of our cats that we had when I was growing up had a particular taste for any creatures. I remember we used to have those little. We did them with we did them when my sister and I were pretty little, which is also when we had cats. But we did those little kits that you can buy where you buy caterpillars and you quote unquote raise them until they, excuse me, you quote unquote raise them until they hatch from their chrysalis or cocoons or whichever. I think moths is cocoons and butterflies is chrysalis. I forget. But anyways, you quote unquote raise them, which is you sit there and you look at them. And it's like a little kit that you can buy, and then you release the butterflies. And I would like to think that our cats did not immediately kill them, but I can't confirm that that's how it went. So hopefully they survived. Actually, I think this is going to come in front, like so. Yeah, that's gonna make all that little sketching I did irrelevant. That's fine. That's so cool. I always wanted to catch the moment they hatch in the wild. Yeah, it was a really fun little experiment to do. Well, again, my sister and I were pretty young. But yeah, I think the butterflies that we got were painted ladies, I think is what they were called. And you kind of got to the whole point was that you had this little kit that you could put them in and they would just kind of go through their own natural process and it would just give you a chance to kind of the assignment that came with it was to take notes about like the stage of how they hatch and everything because when they hatch they're super super chubby because they've got all the blood that's like needs to go out to their wings is still in their body and so they hatch and they're all super super chunky and super plump and then they kind of get situated and then they slowly pump the blood out to their wings and their wings expand. It's really cute. It's a very interesting little process. I remember enjoying that when I was a little kid. And And then I'm thinking, obviously they're going to be wearing their red gloves because literally everything the Cardinals wear is red. But kind of thinking we'll do I can't really tell what angle I was going to have this hand at, but I want to turn the angle of the hand anyway, so we'll do something kind of like that. The orb looks fantastic. Thank you. It's kind of egg-shaped. It's supposed to be like a perfect sphere, but it's basically like a magical summoned version of an astrolabe, I think is what they're called. So it's got like the, you know, the rings and so on and all that. Because if you've read, again, if you've read Immolation Volume 1, if you've read far enough, which it's still pretty much in the beginning, excuse me, because there's, in the chapter house, there's this, basically this massive clock that's called Timekeeper, and one of the responsibilities, basically every single cathedral has a timekeeper in it, and part of the cardinal's responsibility is tending to the timekeeper, making sure that it's in operation, making sure that it's maintained, making sure that it's wound if necessary. Usually it kind of winds and unwinds itself via gravity, but sometimes you do have to go in and make adjustments. But also, Timekeeper itself is a calendar, and it keeps track of lots of different things. So part of the Cardinal's responsibility is keeping track of that and, you know, documenting things, and, you know, whenever they are keeping records or checking records or writing new records, they compare all of their own records with Timekeeper to make sure that things are staying in line. So part of their magic that they can summon is like not really a miniature Timekeeper, but also kind of a miniature Timekeeper, where they're basically like checking history or trying to find like certain events or whatever, and that's part of like their kit, for lack of a better word. But again, that's all very, very powerful magic that comes at a very, very high cost, so it's not done regularly. It's something that they have to have a damn good reason to do, because it's very, very difficult to do. But there are rituals that allow them to do that if the need arises. And sometimes it does. Oops, is this the wrong brush? It is the wrong brush. Misio is adorable. Keep the updates about him. Yes, absolutely. Christmas gift wrap is one of the things he loves to play with. Isn't that always the way? I don't remember if any of our cats had like a particular toy or item that they really, really liked playing with. We only had a handful of cats. We've had Whiskers, which was one of our cats. We had Melody, she was very cute. And then we had, I think her name was Amber, but these were all when I was really little. And I think that's literally all the cats that we've had. And Whiskers and Melody were both barn cats, so they weren't indoor cats. Melody was an indoor cat. No. Amber was the indoor cat. I don't remember. I was really little at the time. But yeah, Whiskers and Melody were barn cats. Amber was an indoor cat, I think. I'm pretty sure that's how it went. Because we lived out in the countryside and had all sorts of farm animals and stuff, so they were barn cats. They helped keep the mice population down, which was very good because when we moved into that house and that barn, it was pretty much infested with mice, and so the cats came in handy. They ate well, much to the detriment of the mice. Is there a chance of us getting that ritual in the book? I'd say there's a solid chance. um, I don't know if that's going to be volume 2 or volume 3, but yes, look forward to it. You'll get to see a lot more of the, I say a lot more, but you'll definitely get to see more of the cardinal magic and the specific things that they can do and the things that they can look for. Because again, they're not hunters, they're not healers, they're arcanists. So they can do specific things that you probably wouldn't want Cyril to have access to, but he does. So here we go. Missing cat lore, damn. Otter, welcome in. How are you feeling today? How are you recovering? Okay, let's see. I'm gonna go back to this dude over here. Dudette, whatever they are. As a fun yet also sad little bit of lore, cardinals who are cardinals for a very long time sometimes don't even remember who they used to be. I'm sure if Benjamin becomes a cardinal, that won't happen though. Looks into camera. Exciting. I can't see, but I'm okay. I hope you're hanging in there. I know it's tough. My cat loves playing with everything there is on my desk and his toy balls. Does he have like the little jingly ones? I have some family friends who I believe have 3 cats. One of their cats is really cute. He's got like 6 toes, which is super adorable. Um, but they love these little they're like a spiraled wire in the shape of a ball with like a little bell inside. They love that thing. They can't get enough of that thing. It's got like that classic cat bell noise that it makes. Let's see here. I'm going to. Why Benjamin wouldn't have troubles forgetting his past if he became a cardinal? That's an excellent question. Benjamin doesn't even know if he is going to be considered to be a cardinal. He just hopes that he will. And Benjamin definitely wants to be a cardinal. And he has the benefit of the cardinals are basically one of the oldest orders in like within the church. So the clerics are the oldest, but it was discovered very quickly that when you have a cleric, you need someone to keep track of who is doing what. But the hunters, in like the grand scheme of like the church, are relatively new. So you had clerics first, you had cardinals second, and then you had shit happen. And then there's like, oh no, there's a vampire problem. We need something to deal with that. And so then hunters came into the equation. So even as old as the institution of vampire hunters is at this point, cardinals are much older still. So they have a whole history before the vampires became a problem. So Benjamin has all these just years and years and years of records and diary entries and all sorts of stuff from cardinals that have gone before and have passed away. So I think Benjamin, maybe his confidence is unwarranted. I don't know, but I think Benjamin would try really, really hard to retain his sense of self because already he works really hard to do that as is. One of the things that isn't really touched on, I touched on this briefly in one of my Patreon kind of behind the scenes posts that I made, but basically, one of the signs of faith in the church is having your eyes change color to become gold. And kind of over time, it's relatively expected. Like Cyril's eyes, full gold. Like, well, I mean, he's only got one, but that one eyeball, full gold. So Cyril's eye is gold. Serge, his eyes, also gold. So over time, and actually, this isn't, if you want a little cheeky sneak peek, this is probably going to be in Volume 3. There's an interaction with another character speaking to Maddox, and they're talking about how faith changes the clergy over time. And Maddox is someone who very much joined the church because Cyril told him to and like talked him into it. Maddox is technically not a brother. He's not a monk. He's just a deacon. So he's not really a full-fledged brother. He's more of like a contracted quasi-brother situation. Maddox joined because it was convenient and because it was financially viable. And it was a good situation for him to be in, and Cyril talked him into it, and Cyril also pulled some strings to make it happen. But there's a scene in Volume 3 where a character who is talking about that and is talking about, because this character has known Cyril for a very long time, and by extension has known Maddox because they've been friends for a very long time. This character is talking to Maddox about how Cyril's eyes turned gold a long time ago, which signifies that he has been deeply convicted and very, very much deeply steeped in his faith. Like, he very, very much believes this stuff. Versus Maddox, who, when this character looks at him, they look at Maddox's eyes and they see that his eyes are gray, but he has flecks of gold in them. There's a little bit of gold kind of sprinkled throughout his eyes. And this character makes the comment of, you see, even you, when you didn't want to be at the church in the first place, even you have some faith. And Maddox excuses that as, well, I have to have some level of faith in order to summon my weapon. I have to have a little bit. Benjamin has no gold in his eyes whatsoever. Benjamin's eyes have zero gold. And a lot of people don't like that. Serge, for example, doesn't like that. Some people speculate that Benjamin wears his glasses to hide the fact that his eyes don't have any gold in them, because people don't like that. They expect to see evidence of faith in a clergy member's eyes. Benjamin doesn't have any, so you could argue that he has a better sense of self because he isn't so blinded that his eyes are already turning gold. At least so far. Maybe. I've also almost finished my coffee. Once I finish this, I'll probably call it because I did I baked banana bread last night. It was very yummy, as I mentioned, but I did not clean the kitchen up after. So I need to clean up all of my mess from baking last night. So I'll need to go do that soon. But I'm almost finished with my coffee, and then once I do finish it, I will go ahead and probably call it a day so I can get back to work. That's eye-opening, actually. Benjamin is probably he's actually Benjamin is confirmed to be my editor's favorite character, so love that for him. Good job, Benjamin. Benjamin is probably one of the characters that most people cite as like their favorite or they really like him. And I would say he's up there on my list as well for one of my favorite characters just because he's got a really unique kind of approach to the church where he's undeniably a very competent and powerful healer, but he isn't necessarily buying everything hook, line, and sinker. He's very loyal to the church, don't get me wrong. It's not like he betrayed the church because he really does believe in, I think, kind of the overall mission of the church, for lack of a better word. Like he's very serious about taking confessions. That's something that really matters to him. But he's definitely, he's not going to blindly accept things that the church says. He keeps his mind open to things outside of the church in a way that some people may not necessarily like. Looking at Serge. I'm glad I hopped in just for that bit of Ben lore. Well, I'm glad you could hear it. I love Ben. He's probably he's probably one of my favorite characters in the roster. I like all of my children equally, except Ben is one of my favorites. Uh, but yeah, he's got. I really like that he's got an interesting kind of approach to his own beliefs, and he's undeniably faithful in the sense that he takes it very seriously what he's doing. But yeah, I don't know. I really like Ben. He's a good bean. And he would make a good cardinal. My beloved. Did my music stop again? It did. How dare you? Okay. Become Cardinal just to whack Cyril that much harder on the knuckles. He deserves it. Cyril deserves it. Being a Cardinal means you get special permissions, like being able to tell Cyril when he's being an idiot. Whether or not he'll genuinely listen to you is another matter, but at least you can say it. The two current Cardinals are very mischievous. I mean, they know when to be serious, but they're pretty playful and mischievous. That's both of their personalities have that, and it drives Cyril absolutely nuts. Cyril is just, can you please take your job seriously? And then they're just kind of like, eh. The Cardinals, as an order, have been around so long that they've seen some shit. Like they can access the records and everything. So they're like, eh. It makes me think of if you've got if you guys have ever seen A Bug's Life, the movie A Bug's Life, where there's the ants and they like get in the beginning of the movie, the ants are all trying to march, and like a leaf falls, and the ants start freaking out, like, "No, I've lost the line. I don't know where to go." Yada yada. And this guy comes in, and he's like, Psh, "This is nothing compared to the twig of '93." Like that. That's the energy the Cardinals have. They're like, no, we've seen worse." Childlike personalities are the best. They've just got this element of playful mischief to them that I really really love. They're kind of, for me personally, when I'm writing a dark fantasy, I don't want to push it over into grimdark, because me, on a personal level, like when I'm reading something, there needs to be like a certain amount of like just joy in general. There needs to be a certain amount of that in order for me to feel invested in the world. I really struggle to get invested in worlds where everything is awful and everyone's miserable all the time. I'm like, no, if you want me as a reader to root for characters that are enduring just horrible, horrible things, there needs to be like a reason that they're fighting. Like I need there to be something beyond just pure survival. There needs to be a joy in life. And I like that the Cardinals have a little bit of that. They've been, as an order, they've been through so much, they've seen so much shit, and they're like, I'm chilling, I'm vibing. I watched the heck out of that movie when I was little. I love that movie. I still love that movie. No, actually, you haven't seen the movie? Oh, you haven't seen Bug's Life? Bug's Life is so fun. You should definitely watch it. Hopper is like classic Disney villain. I know it's not a Disney movie, but like, is it? I think it's a Pixar movie. I think it was before Disney and Pixar were together. I don't remember. I didn't keep track of that marriage and divorce. I don't care. But anyways, yeah, Hopper, the villain, is like classic Disney villain energy. He's so much fun. Just absolutely 10 out of 10. Chef kiss. Totally recommend the film. Are we talking about faith in God? Sort of. I mean, it's a fantasy religion and they've got their own God, but their faith is technically, yes, a faith in their God and the magic that their God provides, if you want to think of it that way. What you say about Cyril's eyes makes me really go, about what I brought up to you at the end of the book. Yes. Smiling. A Bug's Life is Pixar. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. It was one of the earlier Pixar films, so it was, I believe, before it was like Disney Pixar. But yeah, 10 out of 10 would easily recommend. Just a really charming film. These are the most blob ass hands I've ever drawn, but I'm fine with that. What is the reason for Bronte's inability to leave? Well, if you read a little bit into Volume 1, you'll hear some comments from other characters that might give you an idea as to why she doesn't leave. Now, there's different layers to that. Is she physically restrained from leaving? No, she could walk out of the grounds if she chose to do so. Um, is she forbidden in the sense that she has been explicitly told, do not leave. For your own safety, you need to stay here? Yes, she has been told that. So she knows that she can't leave. Really, she can't. And there are more layers to that, but you'll just have to read. Who needs hands when you got the drip? Church of High Fashion. What was Bronte's position on religion? Was she a believer? Bronte is struggling with her faith. She's not really sure what to believe. She definitely believes that the God that her church follows is real. She definitely believes that, but she doesn't really know how she fits in to all of that. She's not nearly as convicted that she is in the right or even that she's in the wrong, the way that Cyril is 100% convinced that he is in the right and that he has it all figured out. Bronte is still trying to kind of find her place within the religion. She definitely believes that it's real, but there's a layer to this that is probably not obvious if you are approaching this religion in the way that you might approach like real world monotheistic Catholicism, right? Like we here in like the West in general, in like the United States and in Europe, we are very familiar with this monotheistic idea that Christianity in general and or Catholicism states that there is one true God and that all the other gods are fake, or whatever you kind of want to approach that with. That kind of monotheism is pretty much the standard for a lot of fantasy religions because it's what we're familiar with. This world does not operate on that principle. People have lots of different opinions on gods, whether they exist, whether there is a monotheistic single correct God, or whether there are multiple. The church that Cyril belongs to is not a monotheistic religion. They do not believe they follow the one true God. They believe they follow a God that is one of the most powerful and therefore the one most deserving of their faith and of their worship. There are other gods that exist in this world, again, depending on who you ask. Some people don't believe in gods at all. Domingo, for example, doesn't believe in gods at all because he comes from an empire that says gods aren't real, they are a scientifically provable creature, and it's just a creature. It's not a god, it's not a deity, it is just a magical creature of some kind. And there are lots of different approaches to that, but that's why, part of why, Domingo is like, yeah, no, you can't just do whatever you want because you believe in whatever you believe in. So it's not a monotheistic approach, so we have to kind of take that into consideration when you're thinking about this kind of religion, because even though it visually is styled very similar to Catholicism, it is absolutely not Catholicism. It is a purely fantasy religion that has its own rules and its own caveats. So you're telling me there could be god fights? There could be god fights, and there are god fights, according to some people's belief. Technically, the church that Cyril follows believe their god fights and defeats other gods, and that's why their god, she, and that's why she deserves their praise and their worship and their adoration, because she's the most powerful. But that gets into like the lore of like the world at large and kind of goes beyond the bounds of immolation. So maybe I'll talk more on that. Maybe I won't, because it's big. But that can give you an idea of why it's so important to have cardinals and record keepers. Because if your god is like chewing out some other god, it's like you want to keep a record of that. You want to have somebody keeping score, somebody writing down your wins. My family is very religious. I'm still trying to figure it out. There's nothing wrong with that. We all have to go through that journey for ourselves. I was also raised in a very religious household, so I get it. That's the kind of weird lore I'm about. I really want to delve into that lore, and we'll delve into it a little bit, kind of in Volume 2 and Volume 3, um, because it's mentioned in, I think Cyril speaks to Domingo in Volume 1, and basically says that Cyril blames Domingo's god, which when he says Domingo's god, he's referring to. Okay, this is another layer of it. There's, according, oh my god, how do I say this like somewhat concisely? From Cyril's point of view, because Cyril is religious, he would be considered a religious person, irrespective of the fact that he's a priest. I mean that his beliefs mean that he's religious versus having like an atheist or secular belief or whatever you want to call it. He believes that there are gods versus someone like Domingo who does not believe in gods. He doesn't think that there are gods. He thinks that there are beings that are incredibly magically powerful, but he doesn't hold them to be deities that they worship. He just thinks that they are powerful beings that exist and does not think they should be worshipped. Because he comes from an empire that holds more into they lean more towards everything can be explained through science, and we can explain these creatures' existence through science. They are not deities, they are just magical things. Because magic exists in this world. So the fact that magic exists and people can use magic means that people don't associate magic inherently with gods. Magic just exists, and if you want to say that your magic comes from a deity, you technically can, but his empire, the empire that he works for, holds that nope, it's all explained through science, none of it is through deities. So when Cyril says to Domingo, your god did this, not mine, he's saying that the god of the empire that Domingo works for, their god decided to do something. Because gods are usually associated with different geographic regions, and different geographic regions are considered that god's quote unquote territory, and the people within that region, typically, if they are religious, will follow that god. Which is why you get god fights, because there's territory up for grabs. If you're religious, that's generally the very simplified opinion of how deities and such work. If you're like Domingo and you think that it's all science, you don't think that there are any gods or deities, you just think it's the different magical properties of the geographic regions, and people choose to interpret those things as gods when it's been scientifically proven that they're not, they're just consequences of the geographic regions and the magical properties that exist in those regions. Does that make sense? We're going to touch a little bit more on it, but not a ton, because this book is not necessarily about exploring the larger world. It is purely about Windermere and that province/region. I wonder, I have the book. I can just go find it. All right, let's see. Um, all right, here we go. Let's see what chapter that was in. It does. Thank you for all the crunchy layers. Delicious layers. Like an onion baked in the oven with a bunch of peanut butter inside of it. Okay. Excuse me? Have you not seen that video? I'm looking through Immolation. No, there's a video by B. Dylan Hollis where he bakes this just terrible, awful old recipe that's like peanut butter, breadcrumbs stuffed into an onion and baked, and it's horrible. I found it. I think I found it. Let's see. It is chapter 50 of Immolation, page 279 in the paperback. Maybe this isn't the official print of the book. I have an early print, so that page number might have changed, but it is chapter 50. Yep, here we go. Okay, so Cyril says, I might recommend you start with that treatise. You'll see that it was your God that damned her, not mine. That's what Cyril says to Domingo. I won't read more than that because it gets kind of spoilery, because this is like chapter 50. This is a good way through the book. So I won't read more than that. But Cyril does explicitly say to Domingo, it was your God that damned her, not mine. Which, of course, Domingo responds, we have no God, priest. Do not attribute Monassarian magic to something as flimsy as faith. Domingo's an atheist. But yes, chapter 50. Actually, I'm gonna put this back here. I wonder if I could find that video. I don't know how I'd have to create a new capture in order to share it. But yeah, absolutely terrible recipe. Absolutely horrible, terrible. About if I I'll find it. I know the man. Yeah, it's like peanut butter, breadcrumbs, and an onion. I think that's literally, excuse me. I think that's literally it. And I think it's like a Depression era recipe, which makes sense. But also, if I was in the Depression, I wouldn't want to be more depressed by eating that. So, go figure. Oh, and you know, actually, before, because I have finished my coffee, I finished it a little bit ago, so I need to start wrapping it up. But actually, before I go, I can probably show you the work in progress I got for the Secret Projects book cover, since the artist sent me an update. I'm very excited. I think it looks really good. I will squint my hardest to see it. Well, please don't strain your eyes. I will probably finish this little layer that I'm working on, and then I will show you guys the work in progress, and then I'm gonna go ahead and head out so I can hopefully be productive with my weekend. Fingers crossed. All right, I'm probably gonna leave it like that. I didn't get to shade the other sketches, but that's okay. It's a good base, and I'll use this in the YouTube video kind of talking about the Cardinals, which hopefully will be, I don't know. I have no idea how soon I'll be able to work on that. I'm so behind with everything. I need to like choose which one comes first so that I can just start uploading them, but I don't know. I overthink these things, unfortunately, but it is what it is. Okay, let me go ahead and find this whip for you guys, and then I will show you the cover. I watched the Stuffed Onion video. My only question is why. Yeah, I don't know. Our ancestors were creative. All right, here is, let's see here. Here is the work in progress for the cover for the Secret Project. I'm very, very excited. Scroll over a little bit. I'm very excited. I think it looks really good. I know that she's going to have like a gold trim on the armor. It just wasn't showing for this particular screenshot because it gets rendered separately. But I'm so excited. I really, really like the colors, and I'm really, really happy that they're taking the time to go in and render all this. I think it's going to look really, really good. I'm very, very excited. I still don't know exactly what I'm going to do for the text, like the title. Like I think I have the font or typeface that I'm going to use, but we'll see. I'm very excited though, and I think it looks very, very nice. Angelique, I know I'm so excited to see her. We'll see how the we'll see how the writing goes. I am an overwriter just by nature. I can't help it. Um, so that means that the word count is really high, and I would need to cut out a lot of material to bring the word count down to what I want. So I don't know. We'll have to have to see how that goes. A friend of mine, a friend that I was talking to last night, as I was kind of talking to them about being an overwriter and what that means with like my word count and so on, she said, "Well, why don't you just make it a duet and make it two books, two shorter books that people can read?" And I'm like, "Ugh, that wasn't in my plan. That wasn't what I wanted to do." But I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. It would end up being like two really short books rather than like one like too long book. Because my goal was for it to be like 80,000 words. And it's already about like 70,000, and it's like not even really halfway. It is halfway. It's like just barely past the halfway point, and it's already at 70,000. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I don't want it to be two books, but I don't know what material I can cut either. I don't know. Hopefully, I can get some beta readers in and they can tell me what needs to be cut out, or what could be cut out. I don't know. We'll see. Writing is hard. Writing is hard. So we'll see how it goes. I am super, super excited about this cover, though. I think it looks really good. I'm very excited to see how it goes from here. Bless their heart. You can tell. So these are my lines, right? Like I drew the lines, and then she is doing the rendering for me. But you can tell that like the lines that I did, this is a very small screenshot, so it's pixelated, but you can see like the lines that I did on the sword versus the very, very lazy sketch that I did for the sword belt. So bless her heart for being willing to work with such a miserable sketch that I did, showing like, yep, there's the belt, that's where it goes. But it looks really, really nice. I'm really, really excited, and I can't wait to see how it turns out, how it continues. So all that said, I'm going to call it a day for the stream. I am going to do some housekeeping and then get back to work writing this secret project because, oh my gosh, it is getting way too long. It's a reasonable suggestion, maybe. I mean, because it's already all written, I can just release both books at once. And I think maybe like two shorter reads would maybe be easier, more digestible. I don't know. Maybe. We'll find out. But thank you so, so much for coming and hanging out with me. I did not sleep at all, so I was really tired, but this definitely was worth waking up for. So thank you so, so much for coming and hanging out. I hope you guys had a good time. I hope you guys had some fun talking about the little guys, the little they thems. I had a lot of fun talking about the Cardinals. They're probably one of my favorite pieces of lore, so it was really fun to talk about them, really fun to draw them. I'm excited to post the video about them. It's probably not going to be the very first one that comes out, but hopefully it'll be up on YouTube by the end of the year, God willing, depending on how work goes. You better sleep some. No time for sleep. I'm just gonna go make more coffee and try to get more work done. I didn't get to sleep until about 3 or 3:30 last night because I stayed up way too late without realizing. But it is what it is. So I do have a 3-day weekend though, so I do have tomorrow off, which is really nice. If I really need to catch up on sleep, I can do it tomorrow. But yes, thank you very, very much once again for coming and hanging out. It is always a pleasure. I stream every other Sunday here at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I hope you can make it. I would love to see you again, and I will see you guys next time.